Breaking news: as the United Nations turns 80, global leaders and scholars are questioning whether the organization can still deliver on its founding mission. From peace and security to climate change and emerging technologies, the UN now operates in a world shaped by geopolitical rivalry, fragmented powers, and competing global interests. So, the key question is, does the UN still matter today? The key question remains, is the UN still relevant, or is it being sidelined in a changing world order? The United Nations was established in 1945 after the failure of the League of Nations to prevent global war. Its primary purpose was to maintain international peace and security and to serve as a forum for collective action. 80 years later, the UN faces challenges that are broader and more complex than ever before. So today, we examine three questions. First, whether the UN remains relevant in peace, security, climate, and technology. Second, whether it still functions as a unifying platform for global diplomacy. And lastly, how rising geopolitical competitions affect its role. Let us start with peace and security. Has the UN delivered on its original promise?
Thank you. UN peacekeeping remains one of the organization's most visible tools for maintaining international peace and security. Research shows that peacekeeping missions significantly reduce the likelihood of conflict recurrence, particularly in post-civil war states. Modern missions are multidimensional, combining military presence with civilian protection, electoral support, and institution building. When adequately resourced and clearly mandated, peacekeeping can stabilize fragile environments.
But does this success actually apply to all conflict situations?
Well, to answer that, Libya is often known as a cited success because the mission had sustained political backing and sufficient resources. It demonstrates that UN peacekeeping works best when major powers support the mission and host states cooperate.
However, UN peace and security efforts collapse when political consensus is absent. Syria highlights how divisions among permanent members of the Security Council can paralyze decision-making. Veto politics prevent collective action, undermining the UN's ability to respond to mass atrocities.
So the failure lies not in the UN mandate, but political deadlocks among states.
Okay, beyond armed conflict, the UN remains central to global climate governance. Climate change is a transboundary problem that no state can solve alone.
Without the UN, where would the global coordination take place?
Through frameworks such as the UNFCCC and the Paris Agreement, the UN facilitates cooperation, set targets, and mobilizes climate finance, reinforcing its relevance in addressing global existential threats. Although enforcement depends on states, the UN provides legitimacy, coordination, and continuity, functions that no alternative forum can fully replace.
The UN relevance also extends to the emerging technologies such as AI, cybersecurity, and digital governance require international norms to prevent misuse.
Who else can set global standards that apply to all states?
Initiatives such as UNESCO AI Ethics Framework demonstrate how the UN acts as a global norm setter. While it lacks enforcement power, it shapes expectation and standards that influence state behavior.
So, at its core, the UN was designed to function as a platform for global diplomacy, while the UN Charter envisions dialogues and negotiation as alternative to a unilateral action. The General Assembly provides universal representations, allowing all states, regardless of power, to participate in the deliberations and also agenda setting.
But does equal participation translate into real influence?
Well, the Security Councils, by contrast, has binding authority. So when permanent members cooperate, the UN can act decisively, such as through sanctions or even peace enforcement. However, veto use often undermines the system, thus reducing the trust in the UN's ability to respond to urgent crises.
The UN operates in an increasingly multipolar world, and the power is now distributed among the multiple actors, making consensus harder to achieve within universal institutions.
But is this shift making the UN less central to the global governance?
Rivalries between major powers, particularly in the US and China, have intensified divisions within the Security Council. As a result, states increasingly rely on smaller groupings such as BRICS and the G20. While these forums allow faster decision making, they risk marginalizing the UN as the central platform for the global governance.
The UN still contributes to peace and security, but success is conditional.
It remains essential in climate and technological coordination.
It continues to provide diplomatic legitimacy and dialogues.
Yet, geopolitical rivalry increasingly constrains its authority.
Even at 80, the United Nations is still relevant, but it cannot solve every problem. Its relevance ultimately depends on whether states choose to cooperation over competition.